Charles Oliveira is one of the most exciting fighters the UFC has ever seen. He holds the record for the most finishes, most submissions, and most bonuses in UFC history.
From the moment the first bell rings, he's coming at you, guns blazing.
Is Charles Oliveira secretly and quietly becoming the most interesting champion in the UFC?
No, you don't want that ground game. His ground game is so elite.
Time and time again, no matter how much trouble he was in, Charles always found a way to flip the script and finish the fight.
So he's got the most submissions in the history of the sport.
Most time guys will hurt a guy, come in and just go crazy, but not with him.
But just over 3 months ago, Oliveira stepped into one of the toughest matchups of his career, a title fight against Ilia Topuria, where unfortunately, he was brutally knocked out.
Well, he's already busted up. Out cold.
A man of his word.
Oh my goodness.
And now
he called
the new UFC lightweight champion, Ilia Topuria.
Lionheart Charles took the loss like a champion, and we always knew that no matter how tough the defeat, he was going to come back.
Come with the money, brother. Let's go.
But there are a few rules you just don't break, and one of them is you don't step back into a fight only 3 months after getting knocked out. But guess what? Charles Oliveira did, and he will be fighting on October 12th in Rio.
Only 3 months after getting knocked out by Ilia Topuria, I don't think anyone saw this coming, but Oliveira is back.
Just 39 days removed from him being flatlined against Ilia Topuria, Charles Oliveira's manager thought, you know what sounds like a good idea? Getting Oliveira back in there now.
Around 3 months after a bad knockout loss, which he said the only time he felt like he'd been really knocked out, to go through it in your mid-30s. That seems like a bad idea for me.
There aren't many fighters willing to take the kind of fights Charles Oliveira takes. His lion heart and bravery are what made him a legend, but those same qualities might be what bring an end to the era of Charles Oliveira. Charles Oliveira's story will be talked about for generations.
He was a guy who was kind of known as a guy who fell apart.
A quitter a little bit. Yeah.
And he just turned a corner and then became the baddest motherfucker in the weight class.
Yeah.
From fighting on small Brazilian undercards for pennies to climbing all the way up and becoming a UFC champion and one of the most beloved fighters in the sport.
Charles is beloved. Hey, listen, if you don't love Charles Oliveira, you're not a mixed martial arts fan, so I give it to him.
Fighters can fake their personality and their public appearance, but one thing they can't fake is the fight itself. And Charles Oliveira is living proof that you don't need to know a single word of English to capture the hearts of fans around the world.
Hello, Vancouver! Hello, Canada! Hi, I'm sorry, my English is little. I thank so much. A big support, a big fans. Hey, Charles Oliveira, a big champion. The champion is the name. The Charles Oliveira, brother.
Charles is the man with the most finishes and submissions in UFC history. But what made him truly special is that he wasn't a dominant wrestler who played it safe. Instead, he stood in the fire, and when his opponents thought they had him, that's when he was at his most dangerous. That's the way Charles delivered some of the most entertaining fights we've ever seen. But everything has an expiration date. And so does Charles Oliveira's body, because fighting in the style Charles does is impossible to sustain forever, and you can't fight that way until you're 50 years old, as some fighters want.
My goal is to fight until 50 years old. It's impossible to me stay champion. I'm 34 now, and in 16 more years stay champion. It's impossible.
From the very beginning, every time he stepped into the octagon, it was chaos.
Like the way he fights too, man. He's so exciting. That guy's, he just goes right into the fire, man.
And while that's exactly what made him a fan favorite, it also came at a price. On top of that, Charles is aging and has endured brutal weight cuts for years at both lightweight and featherweight. And even in the fights he won, his body still kept the score and took the punishment.
155 and a half. 155 and a half for Charles Oliveira. Charles will have 1 hour to cut the final half pound.
In his 45 professional fights and countless knockdowns, Charles had never once been put out cold. With that being said, all the roads led back to a fight for the lightweight championship belt against a man who's been turning the lights out on everyone.
Topuria is a nightmare.
Yes, he is.
He's a nightmare.
First man in the world to knock out a legend in Max Holloway, one of the best 45-pound fighters that's ever walked the earth.
We are gonna find each other in the middle of the octagon, and once I'm gonna start to combine the punches, you're not gonna see me coming. He's on the highest level of the sport, but I'm the next level of the sport.
The only thing he has to do is like show up, and I'm gonna do the rest.
What are you envisioning now as far as the way the fight goes?
I'm gonna finish him in the first round.
It wasn't the first time Charles walked into a fight as the underdog, and once again, he reminded us why he's such a fan favorite, standing and banging with Ilia Topuria until the very last second, fully aware of how dangerous Ilia's power was. But this time, his lion heart cost him dearly, because for the first time in his career, Charles Oliveira was knocked out cold.
Well, he's already busted up. Oh! Out cold.
A man of his word.
Oh my goodness.
And
he called it. He called
lightweight champion Ilia
He called it. He said he was.
I was like, he walks forward. He doesn't even know how to walk backward. So I'm gonna knock him out really quick.
Crazy thing is, a lot of times fighters are at the peak of their ability, and then they have one loss and they fall off a cliff. That's like Tony Ferguson is the greatest example of that. He was the scariest fucking guy in the 155-pound division until he wasn't.
Charles is not the first and won't be the last fighter to get knocked out. But what separates them is how they come back afterward. Because once durability goes, once the chin fades, it almost never comes back, especially if you've taken a lot of damage throughout your career.
I think a lot of these fighters, they need the time off, but they don't take it, and they try to rush back in after losses, and it just adds up.
So just a month after the knockout, Charles decided to book another fight, this time at UFC Rio against Rafael Fiziev.
Charles Oliveira fight announcement? Only 3 months after getting knocked out by Ilia Topuria. I don't think anyone saw this coming, but Oliveira is back. He is going to be fighting Rafael Fiziev in Rio de Janeiro as a main event on October 11th.
Just 39 days removed from him being flatlined against Ilia Topuria, Charles Oliveira's manager thought, you know what sounds like a good idea? Getting Oliveira back in there now into a training camp.
I understand the impulse. You had that bad taste in your mouth. You lost. You want to get back in there. It's the only thing that kind of erases it for them. But it also seems like around 3 months after a bad knockout loss, which he said the only time he felt like he'd been really knocked out, where he didn't have any memory of it and people had to tell him what happened in the fight. He said he'd never gone through that. To go through that for the first time, to go through it in your mid-30s, and to then try to turn around and fight like 3 months later, that seems like a bad idea for me. Not just for like brain health terms, but in terms of like wins and losses.
What do you say to people, Charles, who say you're coming back too soon? There was concern when your fight against Fiziev was announced October 11th that it was too soon from the fight against Ilia. What is your response to those people who are critical of this decision?
Cara, na realidade, assim, feliz com as pessoas que estão falando pelo meu bem, né? Sendo que outras estão falando simplesmente pelo hype, né? Pelo manter o hype. Cara, eu tô muito bem, eu tô muito feliz, eu tô muito focado. O que passou, passou. Agora é um próximo passo, é uma nova luta, um novo local. Então, assim, os que falaram porque estavam preocupados, legal. Agora os que falaram pelo hype, na realidade, acho que nem tem que escutar aqui e sair do outro lado. Mas o mais importante de tudo é o quanto que eu tô bem, o quanto que eu tô feliz, o quanto que eu quero essa luta.
Not many fighters can return to the highest level after being knocked out cold. And because we've seen this story play out so many times before, it's not hard to believe that Charles might be heading down the same road as Tony Ferguson.
A lot of times fighters are at the peak of their ability, and then they have one loss and they fall off a cliff. That's like Tony Ferguson is the greatest example of that.
Tony Ferguson,
right?
Prime example. I think after that Gaethje fight, that should have been time off.
We've seen what happened with Alexander Volkanovski after he rushed into a fight with Ilia just 4 months after getting knocked out.
I got knocked out by Jones in Anaheim, and I got called for a fight in late September. And I said, no, I need time. I need to let my brain heal. He got knocked out in October. He's going to fight in February.
Yeah.
It's fast, man.
And he got knocked out by a shin.
A shin.
A shin
it's
to
just,
the head.
it's a little bit worrisome for me, and I like Volk. He's the man.
But just a week ago, it was announced that Mateusz Gamrot would replace Rafael Fiziev. Fiziev had to pull out of the fight due to injury, and Charles got a good replacement in Mateusz Gamrot, a true dark horse of the division and guy who's willing to fight anyone.
When this fight was announced, when it was announced that Charles was going to fight on this date, initially against Fiziev, a lot of people, including myself, were a little bit surprised that he was coming back so soon after getting knocked out the way in which he did against Ilia. Do you think that he is coming back too soon? Do you think that it's a mistake for him to come back this fast?
My coaches say same thing. This is a little bit too early, you know, because I am not his coaches. He's smart. He's one of the biggest the lightweight division, so he know what he doing. This is the Rio card. He doesn't fight long time in Brazil. Maybe that's why he take this fight. This is risk, of course. I am not his coach, you know, so we'll see what's happening in the cage.
So how smart is it for Charles to fight again this soon? Time will tell.